Hey guys, it's Rumbling Man here. Welcome to Worship Bass Class, Part 4, How to Be an Excellent Worship Team Member. Stay with me. So guys, it's Rumbling Man coming to you from Florida today, and today we are diving right back in to Worship Bass Class. Now, Worship Bass Class is going to be a free 5-part YouTube-based training series for worship bass guitar players. And what it's going to do is it's going to keep you in the know of current things going on in worship music related to gear and practice that you need to be aware of. It's going to sharpen your playing, it's going to sharpen your skills, and today what we're focusing on is how it's going to sharpen you as a member of your worship team, help you do your best for the Lord, and also to be a great supporting member of this team that you're serving on. And so today is part 4 in the series. You can check out the rest of the series at the link above me right now. And then when we do part 5 is going to be awesome because we're going to end it big. And then from there's going to be one more offer to take another step forward, to dive in just a little deeper after part 5, and to where we can get you a certificate of being one of my certified worship bass players. So this is your first time here. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do me a favor and go ahead and subscribe to the Rumblin' Man YouTube channel where we have trainings like this. We also review equipment for guitar and bass. We have various tutorials. We take a look at special outings to the NAMM show and things like that right here on my channel. So go on and subscribe and hit the bell so that you can be among the first to see brand new videos when they come out. And also, please go on and smash that thumbs up button if you haven't yet so that YouTube will recommend this video in people's searches for training for worship bass. So guys, today we are talking about how to be an excellent worship team member. Okay, and it's going to be really cool. I'm going to start you out with a verse of scripture, all right? Because this scripture verse is going to kind of be our main verse today that we're going to look at to see that it is important to pursue excellence in what we're doing. And it is this. This is Psalm 33:3, and this is the New King James Version. Look with me. It says, "Sing to him a new song, play skillfully with a shout of joy." All right? And so we know from, what we know about the Psalms is they were referring to playing on a harp, I'm sure, and other versions will say play skillfully on the harp. But either way, whether you're playing a harp or a bass guitar, which, if you put 2 and 2 together, isn't all that much different than a harp. It's a stringed instrument. It says to play skillfully. It says to play with skill in what we do, and it says to play skillfully with a shout of joy. So that shows us that not only are we to be people on the stage who are leading worship, but we need to be up there worshiping. We're not just there to lay a musical foundation for the worship service. We're there to lead others in worshiping God by worshiping God with shouts of joy. And while this YouTube series is intended for worship bass players, today's video actually can apply for worship team members of all types. Whether you're one of the singers or an instrumentalist, whether you're just on the sound and production team, today's advice can help anyone, but is geared toward those who are actually serving the Lord in worship ministry and doing so as part of the worship team. Today we're going to have 3 main points that we're going to look at, and we're going to dive into each one of them a little bit, and these 3 points are going to help you be an excellent worship team member, to where what you're going to do is going to be a big contribution for what's going on at your church, and you're also really going to gain the respect and trust of your church leaders. So today's training is very valuable, so I encourage you to stay with me. These 3 points are all important. I didn't order them in the order which they're important or anything like that. They're all very important points. So let's go on and let's dive in, okay? So point number 1 today for being an excellent worship team member is going to be this: come prepared. Now, that means you're going to come to rehearsal, or you're going to come to the worship service or the Sunday morning run through. Most worship teams out there are hopefully having at least 1 rehearsal per week, hopefully 2, which is 1 being on a weeknight and then 1 on Sunday morning. But whatever the situation is, whether you are a paid member of the worship team and your church is actually employing or subcontracting you to come and do the job you're doing, or whether you're a volunteer, we need to take the responsibility with the same seriousness and the same preparation either way. Even if you're not being paid for the work, you are working. And who are you working for? You're working for the Lord. The work we're doing here is not work for a worship leader or for a pastor. We're working for God. We're doing what we do in service to His ministry. And of course, we enjoy the work we do. So that said, everyone needs to focus on coming prepared. And that's going to look like a few different things, okay? One thing that's going to look like is communication. You know, a lot of churches are going to be using a server like Planning Center, and your worship leader or worship administrator or whoever's heading things up is usually going to send out, you know, a schedule request for you to accept or decline through email. Please do your church leadership a favor and respond as quickly as you can. Now, everybody's going to have to check on their schedule, but please respond quickly to that request, because I can tell you this, after being a worship leader myself, I'm not currently on staff at a church, but I have been a staff worship leader at 4 churches, and I can tell you this, that person in that role who's planning worship, they need to know your availability so that they can plan for the week and for the weeks ahead. So please confirm your availability. Verify if you're free or not right away. And when you accept that invite, or when you communicate with that leader to tell them that you're on board, that means you're not just on board for the worship service. You're not just on board for, yeah, I'll be there Sunday morning to play during church. You're on board for preparing the music on your own, learning it before you ever go to rehearsal. You're on board for being at rehearsal, being on time. You're on board for being at Sunday morning run through. You're on board for the whole weekly process. It's very important that we be all in and that we give God all that we have to give in worship ministry. So coming prepared is going to look like great communication. And another thing, kind of what we hit on just now, B, is going to be knowing the music. Now, notice I didn't just say be vaguely familiar with the music. Notice I didn't just say, show up at rehearsal and learn the music on the spot. I said, know the music, all right? You need to spend, an hour or two on your own before rehearsal ever happens. You need to spend time on your own preparing the music, learning the changes. And if you can't memorize it and you still need to rely on charts when you get there, it's absolutely fine. But learn the music on your own. Practice the songs. Be ready. I've often told worship teams this, is that practice is something we do on our own before rehearsal. Rehearsal is something we do as a group. You can't have rehearsal until you have practice. So make sure you know the music well, okay, and that you're ready to go in and play as a team. If you show up unprepared, not only does it look unprofessional, but you could be the link that holds back the entire team, because it's very possible that others are further ahead than you are with their knowledge of the music. Now, I say this trusting that your worship leader does give you the music for the week at least a couple days before rehearsal happens. Hopefully they're in a situation where they're doing that and where they're enabled to do that by the church leadership. But yes, if you have that music before rehearsal happens, then practice it. It's going to help you and the team as a whole sound great. It's going to help rehearsal go a lot more smoothly and a lot more quickly if you are ready. So make sure you know the music. And then C is being on time. For coming prepared, be on time, be punctual. Okay, if rehearsal is on Thursday night at 6 p.m., but you need to plug up your bass or your rig, get things set up and get dialed into the system beforehand, then get there at 5:45 or 5:30. Come straight from work. Whatever the case may be, make sure you're there with enough time to get yourself and your rig set so that at 6 or 7 o'clock, whenever rehearsal begins, so that the worship leader knows that they have your attention and that you're ready to work on the music. This is going to go a really long way. We need to put our best foot forward. We need to play skillfully for the Lord. And if we're unprepared, we're not going to be able to do that nearly as well. So come prepared. So guys, point number 2 might ruffle a few feathers out there, but it is so important, okay? Point number 2 today is this: support your worship leader. Notice I didn't say come against your worship leader or create division on the team. No, you don't want to do either one of those things, please, okay? And notice I didn't say, enter into conflict with your worship leader. Come on. Support your worship leader. They need your support. Now to back up for a second, if you're new to, the lingo of worship ministry and churches, if you're serving on a worship team as the bass player, vocalist, whatever, you are most likely, unless you're actually the worship leader, you are most likely serving under a worship leader. This is someone who's on staff at the church, who might be in a volunteer position but has been given this leadership role. Whoever it is, this person is the leader of the team. And so we need to respect the leadership that they give, okay? And I do have a biblical example that shows us that we do need to respect that leadership, and it's this. This is Hebrews 13:17 in the ESV, English Standard Version. If you'll read with me, it says this: "Obey your leaders and submit to them, for they are keeping watch over your souls, as though who will have to give an account. Let them do this with joy and not with groaning, for that would be of no advantage to you." We're not supposed to go against their leadership. We're not supposed to, interject our own ideas and try to beat them over the head or try to get, a gang up to happen if we don't agree on something. That is all divisive. That is all division, and we do not want division in the church. There is other scripture to support that, okay? You are to support this person. You're to respect their leadership. If that person trusts you, then trust me, you'll be taking a lot of stress off of their plate. Here's why, okay? The worship leader, this guy or gal, they are having to deal with a lot of things from a lot of people. Okay, so people, the church is full of people. So why are there sometimes problems in churches? Because churches are full of people. God doesn't make mistakes, Jesus doesn't make mistakes, but people make mistakes. And so this worship leader is having to deal with, even in a church setting, a lot of stress from a lot of people. And chances are this guy or girl is stressed out some of the time because they're having to receive input from the pastor. Okay, there's going to be some kind of lead pastor over them that they're having to support, that they need to be supporting. They're having to receive input from some elders or a staff parish relations committee. They're receiving input from congregation members who feel that they have a free pass to just kind of tell this worship leader how they should do things. Okay, they also have their own family that they need to be responsible for and take care of when they're not at the church. And more than anything, this worship leader is reporting directly to God. They are to be prayerful, and they are to, lead the worship ministry as God will have them do. Okay, so all this different input while they're trying to serve God, that's a lot of stress. You don't want to be someone who adds to their stress. This person needs your support. Look, even if you don't agree on some things, maybe if you have a disagreement about the music, maybe if they're using tracks and you don't want to use tracks, maybe if you disagree about how the worship service is being led, it's really best if we put those differences aside. Let them know that you support the work they're doing, that you respect their leadership, and that you want to help them. When they send out an email about the songs, reply and say, "Hey, can't wait, see a rehearsal." It's little things like that that can help you as someone who's serving God, help someone else who's serving God who may have a bigger burden on their shoulders at the church to carry. You never know what someone in a position like that might actually be going through that maybe they don't even talk about. It's best to put those little disagreements about music and the service, if we have them, it's best to put those aside for the greater good. Because trust me, this worship leader is doing that too. They have ideas about how the church should be run. But you know what? The pastor and the elders and the secretaries and the administrators, they're probably not coming to the worship leader saying, "Hey, how do you think we should do everything?" Okay? But they're having to set some things aside for the greater good. They're having to support the pastor in their role. So in your role, you need to be supporting them as well. Now, I will add a stipulation to that, okay? If your worship leader is doing something that is morally or scripturally wrong, something that is sinful, and they are making very bad decisions that are very bad for the flock, in that case, you do have an obligation, to go to them as a Christian brother or sister and point out to them their error. And there is, scripture to back up, how you approach a brother or sister who is in sin, okay? But the thing is, if that's not the case, if they're not actually going in an evil direction in some way or doing something sinful, it's really best to support their decisions, even when there are decisions we don't agree with. And trust me when I say the more trust that you gain from this person, you're going to have more input over time. At the last church I served at, I was there about 4 years, a little more than that, and I ended up building a worship leadership team that served right over the worship team because I noticed that there were 2 or 3 people that really earned my trust, that were really supporting the work of the ministry and really working for the greater good. And we built a worship leadership team, and we delegated tasks and people, and now at that church, those people are running the worship ministry. So be someone that your church can count on. Support the worship leader in the role you're doing. Respect their authority, respect their leadership. Don't create division, don't come against them. And let's respect the leadership that God has put over us, because in that way, we're going to please Him, we're going to have order and not chaos, and we're going to be able to move forward as a unified team that is passionate to lead others in worshiping God. All right, so now we're going to hit point number 3, but do me a favor real quick. If you're getting value out of this content today, if you like the points, go on and smash that thumbs up button, okay? Hey guys, be an excellent team member by point number 2, supporting your worship leader, okay? And it's going to be absolutely great. Now, point number 3 really supports points 1 and 2, because if we come to the platform, if we come to rehearsal with this kind of mentality and this kind of spirit about us, how could we not be successful? How could we not have a great time together worshiping the Lord, okay? Point number 3 is going to be this: serve enthusiastically. All right, so I got another scripture verse for you today that's going to really help us out with this point, okay? So this is coming from a translation that I'm not as familiar with called the New Life Version, or NLV, and I like the way that this said it, okay? So this is Colossians 3:23 in the NLV, and it says this. Let's read it together. Whatever you do, do it with all your heart. Do it for the Lord and not for men. Okay? Now, notice it doesn't say, do what you need to do to get by. Notice what it says. It says to do it with all your heart. Okay? So if we're going to, that applies to our jobs. Okay? Like my job, my main job right now being, secular entertainment, whatever that is, or whether we're a barista at Starbucks, we are scripturally, I really believe that this isn't a suggestion. I believe this is a command. So let's put our whole heart into this thing. Show your enthusiasm, okay? So on the stage, we're not just to be worship leaders. Everyone on the stage is involved in leading worship. We are to be lead worshipers, kind of like we hit on a little bit earlier. We don't lead others in worship just by playing music, okay? We lead others in worship by worshiping. We need to hit the platform and worship God ourselves. And not only do so when we hit the platform, but rehearsals or preparation, the way we communicate, the way we facilitate friendships with other people on the team, the way we work, with the leader over us. We need to do that with all our heart and make the whole thing an act of worship. Because if it's not something we're doing with our whole heart, if it's not all an act of worship, then we're missing the point of worship. And guess what? You know what? Even if you don't feel like it, even if we don't feel like it, we need to say, okay, I don't feel joyful right now. I don't feel worshipful right now, but I know that that's not right. So I'm going to break through that a little bit, and I'm going to do this with all my heart. I'm going to put my heart and soul into this, and I'm going to show my enthusiasm. I'm going to come early. I'm going to support the worship leader. I'm going to show people are going to be able to look at the way that I play and sing and worship God on stage, and they're going to know that my heart is in this. I mean, you're in front of people, and there are a lot of people in the congregation who might be uninformed, who might not have a relationship with the Lord yet, who might not know anything about worship, and they are literally looking to you and your companions on stage for an example of what it looks like to worship God. This is a huge role, whether we're being paid or not, whether we get the respect we deserve or not, whether we're appreciated or not. If we're doing this thing, we need to do it with all of our heart. And that's coming from someone who has failed a lot. And that's coming from someone who has had, a lot of victories, but also a lot of non-victories. But God has been victorious, every time and redeemed me from all of it. So I know that there's somebody out there today, who needs to hear this stuff, who needs to be able to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to respect the person in leadership over me in this case. I am going to serve wholeheartedly. And we need to follow steps 1, 2, and 3, and especially the scriptures that the Lord has given us to do our very best to make sure we are being excellent in our service to the Lord, and to make sure that we are being excellent worship team members. And I'm sure God is smiling down on the service that you are doing, so keep up the absolutely great work, okay? When part 5 of this series comes out, I'm going to put a link to it that you'll see above me right now. But if you're watching, you don't see that link on YouTube here, then that part of the series has not yet come out. But we're going to end it strong. We're going to end it with a bang. And though this particular series will come to a close, there will be one more offer in relation to this series. And also there will still be plenty more videos geared toward worship musicians and worship bass players. I am on Patreon, and I don't pressure people to give to Patreon, but just to tell you a little bit about my situation, as of recently, I am not employed. I am working self-employed as a musician and as a YouTuber. Those of you who are supporting this channel on Patreon are really helping me continue to do this. You have no idea how hard it can be. So please consider supporting on Patreon, but there's never any pressure to do that, simply because I know that not everyone can, and really what I want is for you to be blessed by the content and just to enjoy the time with me right here on YouTube. So links to everything are in the description of this video, and I will see you in the next part of the series. God bless you guys. Take care.